from the Toronto game a couple nights ago, but yesterday it lingered as hitting coach Guillermo Martínez walked out with the lineup card before the game and got into it with the umpires due to what was the gentleman's name from the night before?
Doug Eddings. Guillermo Martínez apparently had some issues with Doug Eddings. Strike zone 2 nights ago that the whole world had some issues with.
God.
Blue Jays hitting coach Guillermo Martínez uncharacteristically brought out the lineup card the next morning to the umpires, including Doug Eddings. And I got the uncharacteristically from Toronto's broadcast. They said that was not the standard procedure for them, but he took that opportunity to hand the lineup card and apparently have some choice words for Doug Eddings, because he was immediately ejected before the game even started. When everyone was at a commercial break and they came back, and it wasn't even Doug Eddings that ejected him. It was probably the crew chief that day, or whoever it was, but threw him out of the game before the game even started. So that gets us into the incredibly horrific performance of one Doug Edding on, what was that, Tuesday night?
Yeah, Tuesday night. He had a liberal strike zone.
Yes, I would say liberal, meaning he missed 29 strike calls, which I don't know if that's a record. You've been following Ump Scorecard for quite some time, so
it's right at the top.
I would think,
because I did not do my due diligence and research like some of the, because Angel Hernandez is like
up there,
right in there in the 20s too. He's had like 20 plus missed calls. I think the reason the Blue Jays are most upset that, and I would be too, is according to Scorecard, it gave the Sox a +2
runs in one game.
Yeah, +2 runs in one game, which, it was already like a back and forth. And
I mean, they won by 1 run in extra innings, so that those 2 runs were rather critical.
Exactly.
To give some context, at least 2 runs is outrageous. I don't know if I've ever seen that on Scorecard. Typically, a pretty big disparity is like 0.4 runs or 0.6 maybe. I don't know how.
Yeah,
I've even seen one run.
There has been one, like when I've complained on my personal Twitter account.
Oh, you have complained now.
I said at the Veneeries complained, that whiny bastard, but not Sox type thing.
That's a little Twitter spat.
It has. I thought that was a funny way to reply back to you. But yeah, I mean, it's been in the +1.5 and stuff. But I think 2 might be a new record. Here's where it gets all weird for me. And I don't disagree with everyone being upset, but it's so muddied. I heard Jason Benetti a few weeks ago, and there wasn't a good way to fit this in, but now I'm glad this has come up to fit this in. Jason Benetti said on a White Sox broadcast that the box we see on the screen is representative of the strikes that have been called on the hitter for their last 100 at bats.
Oh, okay.
So that leads to a bigger issue in that.
Now that's how NBC Sports Chicago does it. Is that what he's saying?
Well, he's saying that's PitchTrax. So
okay. Well, and we don't know what the different broadcasters are actually using, if they're using PitchTrax or what.
Yeah. So if you're using PitchTrax, it's represented. So that means Doug Eddings' strike zone will come into play on balls that were called strikes on a PitchTrax broadcast. That would come into play as a strike zone for the person. So that's something that,
with 100 at bats, is that what they said?
The last 100 at bats.
So there'd be 4. If you had 4, well, depending, not 4, but how many? 29 calls. So there's probably, I don't know how many at bats were affected. Maybe let's say 10 at bats were affected. So that'd be 10% of that 100 are affected by Doug Eddings' calls. So
yeah, right. So I mean, it was clear, like without seeing a box on a lot of those calls, that they were way off the plate. But my question, my thing why I'm and I think probably because I've already exhausted Scorecard on my @Veneri Twitter account, is at this point, like, I agree. I think it was horrendous, and I think it sided towards the White Sox. So that's what all that data proves. But at the end of the day, what are we looking at? The umps are being judged against something completely different.
We learned that from Joe West,
yeah,
our anti-hero of the week.
Right. And so until we until we get to that auto call, which would be like representative of the strike zone based on what should be the batter's height from his chest to his knee, it's exhausting. It's just exhausting.
You're bringing up good points, and those are all valid. I guess the takeaway from this specific incident is, and what's cool about scorecards is they're judging it the same way every time. What if they're using PitchTrax or another system or whatever? I know it's being influenced by Doug Eddings and other bad calls. But scorecard is a consistent use of the same data, whatever data they are using. So they're essentially they're comparing it to other games. So when we're talking about the plus 2 runs, that was definitely an outlier. And those, we all know that he was calling a terrible strike zone. What scorecard does is tell you, well, he was terrible for everybody. But he was more terrible in an effective way, or a disaffective way for the Blue Jays, or against the Blue Jays. So it's relative. It's you are right. We're getting into other issues that we have gotten into before with consistency, with the technology and other things. But for this, at least this one ridiculous incident, I think we could maybe ignore some of the other issues with the automated strike zone or pitch tracking in general. But it was universally derided. The idea that the pitching coach would purposely get thrown out, purposely deliver the scorecard to get his piece in the next day is just some serious shit.
Make up. A word I like to use a lot when it comes to baseball and judging people, that is an indictment on Doug Eddings.
Yeah.
that he wanted a guy who's fairly low key, he couldn't take it. He had to walk out the scorecard to say his piece. I mean that sends it all.
There's some theories about Doug Eddings' performance. Like, that was a very hot, humid evening in Chicago. Was he trying to get out of there sooner than the dinner reservations joke? Because I was there. Was he trying to get out of the heat? It was too much. Was he feeling like the effects of the heat? Was his vision blurred? Was he dizzy? It's just bizarre when you see the tracking, especially the way scorecards actually visualizes the bad calls. It's literally like you have double vision.
For like 2 to 3 inch like punch outs. I haven't seen calls like that since the Braves won the World Series.
Yeah, exactly. Mid-90s Braves got the benefit of that.
No love for the Cleveland Indians, but they didn't have a prayer in that series when Glavin's throwing 3 inchers off the outside corner and people are getting rung up like nobody's business. Jesus. I think this year, with the technology that's out there and everything we've seen, and all the different graphics, and no matter what system anyone's using, if we're not in an automated strike zone situation next season,
there is some news about that, because the minor leagues have a kind of a hybrid modified system of that, or at least some of the leagues at one level are. They're doing a challenge system. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
Where the umpire still has the same ball strikes call responsibilities, but the managers can actually challenge. I think it's being experimented like 3 pitches per game or something like that. And so far it sounds pretty promising how it's worked, because it only takes 10 seconds to review that call, whether it's a strike, and then they move on. And that could drastically affect things going forward. It seems like kind of a clean, at least on the surface. I haven't watched enough minor league games to see how smooth the process really is, but it's on the surface. It seems like a pretty cool compromise to maybe ease us into that, where umpires are still the majority of the control at home plate, but when there's an egregious error, there's empowerment given to the managers to actually step in and say, no, you fucked that up completely. Let's, and this is too important to fuck up. Let's fix this now. So that might be.
Well, they would have needed about what, 5 each, 6 each
well,
in this last game.
That's what's good about it, limiting the number of times you can. I mean, it's bad that he could fuck things up that badly, but maybe it's even a training tool at the time. It's like, well, you fucked that one up. He learns on the fly. Oh, that was way off. The next pitch has to be closer. So maybe that's a way for, maybe it's like it's an umpire shot collar almost. Like, it just.
No, you're right. I didn't even think about that angle of it. That is like, it's like, okay, I can course correct this now.
Yeah, it's like an invisible fence for your dog.
Yeah.
So maybe that'll help. I don't know. That just popped into my head.
I love we'll call it the invisible fence.
I like the umpire shot collar.
I do too. One fan of each team should get one. Get access to it for a game.
Buzzer.
And you've been upgraded to the ump shot collar seats for this game.
Now we're getting somewhere. That I like that.
Yeah.
Best Sox podcast. Whoever has the best Sox podcast gets the buzzer that day. So we got to bump up these. We can bump up these numbers.
Word Hole Media.